Andy, we are in Web Summit. What do you think about the main trends in this conference, where the society will go?
So there's a lot of talk at the moment about how to survive a downturn in the economy, what companies should prepare for to survive recession. From my standpoint, I'm not quite sure I'm ready to call it a recession, but certainly I would call everything going on in the world at the moment a state of uncertainty, which could be multiple months, if not multiple years. So it's really about preparing for that. And I see a lot of that theme happening this year more than in previous years.
All right. And what do you think? Which the main trends in startups which will grow in the next several years?
Well, I mean, certainly where John and I are focused is on the life sciences side of things. So our radar is perhaps biased anyway towards that segment. But what we're seeing there is a huge amount of innovation and cutting edge technology in health tech, mental tech, life sciences, so biotech and genome tech. And we're super excited about that. We're super excited about what that means for Ukraine. A lot of biotech being discussed here.
Answering your previous question as well, there is a nervousness about economic downturn and recession, but certainly in the health tech space, medicine and wellness is something that's there in good times or bad. And the population in general is getting older, we're all living longer, we have higher expectations. So it seems to be a space that's somewhat timeless. The other trend that I'm seeing is COVID actually had amongst all of the huge negatives and some of the, various overreactions. But one thing that it did get folks comfortable with remote and doing things remote, not just remote working, but we're starting to see now, I talked to a company the other day and they're doing essentially healthcare. It's an e-hospital, so you can be getting the same care you would in hospital. You've got the sensors, you've got medicine that's administered, it can all be monitored, but you can be at home. Now those kind of trends, that reduces costs for hospitals, that reduces pressure on a health system, and I'm not sure that your average patient was ready for that pre-COVID, but one of the things that I think has changed is more of a comfort with remote tech. So in amongst some of the challenges that raises, I think there's some real trends in the health tech space that we should watch.
All right, and the last question. I know that you are focusing or advising of startups and supporting. What are the three main advice for the startups for today?
Well, I mean, the three sort of common areas are make sure you're solving a real problem. I see a lot of startups going after things which are either duplicates of fairly mainstream products that are out there, or they're just not solving something that an early adopter market feels is specifically additive and as a solution to their everyday life. So make sure it's solving a real problem. So the second one is know how to fail quickly. And I see certainly that's a practice that is not adopted widely in startup culture because they're under a lot of pressure from investors to not fail. But in fact, for the investors and the company's standpoint, sometimes it's best to fail quickly, move on, take whatever cash you have. There's two sides to that. And then I think the third one is be extremely disciplined with your roadmap. I see most companies present me with what they think is a roadmap, and what I tend to get is a build map, which is just a Gantt chart with various sprints laid out over a timeline. But there's a roadmap discipline which involves tying in your front end, your back end, your marketing team, your investor schedule into a beautifully choreographed timeline that is kept stable. And I think that would be the third recommendation that I don't see enough of in startups, and they should do more of that, and they would be more successful if they did.
Yeah, I agree with all those. I have two slightly different ones, absolutely aligned on roadmap. That's fundamental. If you don't know where you're going, you're not going to get there. And it's about where you're going as a business, not what tech you're building. I would add a couple more that are relevant, and perhaps there's five overall. eyes wide open decision making. If you're a founder, you need to understand the trade-offs that you're making at each step and really understand them. So when your developer says, oh yeah, I can do that, okay, what are you sacrificing? You know, if you're hard coding rules instead of building a rules engine, you need to understand that in 6 months' time you won't be able to change as quickly. Now, it might be a good decision, it might be what gets you the initial sale. You need to understand the consequences. So eyes wide open decision making and really getting those discussions with your developers so you know. And then the final one is network. You know, you need a network. The network that you build up is incredibly powerful to anyone in business, but particularly I think in the startup world, you can learn so much from so many different sources. And networking is something that you can practice. You can teach yourself to become better at it. And once you can tap into a network of advisors and of people that you know and people that you've helped. This is a big part of it. Being good at networking is paying it forward as well. That becomes a real superpower that can help you kick on.